Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 27, Hippias Minor 375d to E. In the first discussion, just when Socrates was about to refute Hippias by saying, "And you were wrong when you claimed that Achilles was better than Odysseus, since Odysseus is better than Achilles because he has the ability to tell the truth and to lie," Hippias had escaped the refutation by claiming something which the many would agree with, but which had little to do with the previous discussion, and that was that the many think that people who do bad things deliberately are worse than people who do bad things unwillingly, and the laws prove this. The laws are made by the many, and they are harder against people who do bad things deliberately. I've been calling this Hippias's escape clause. He intended to end the conversation at that point. He essentially now held two conflicting positions, one whereby having ability to do good and bad is better than not having that ability, while with the new escape clause, having the ability to do bad is worse than doing bad without the ability to choose. Using Eutychus, Socrates forced Hippias back into the conversation and has ever since been pushing for Hippias to agree that having the ability to do bad is better than doing bad without ability, without choice. And this could lead to a refutation of Hippias's escape clause if Socrates ever got round to talking about people who deliberately do wrong as opposed to people who unintentionally do wrong. Socrates has been exploiting Hippias's weakness that for him ability is what makes him appear good. So Hippias will always agree that something which has the ability to do bad, meaning that it also has the ability to do good, is always better than something which doesn't have the ability to do good, and it does bad whether it likes it or not. While Socrates went through all of the things that we use, parts of the body, tools, humans, Hippias had no problem preferring the things which do bad willingly, that is, with ability. The moment Socrates turned to our soul, which is not something which uses other things, then Hippias knew he had to step in before Socrates reached the refutation that it is better for us to do bad things willingly, and therefore Hippias was wrong. That would be the refutation. Hippias stops that by saying immediately, it would be terrible if people committed injustice willingly. And injustice is connected to what he said in his escape clause about laws. Laws are connected with justice, and therefore the laws are against people who commit injustice. This second escape clause, like the first escape clause, points out that the many think that anyone who has the ability to do bad and does bad willingly, therefore, is worse than someone who does bad unwillingly, while throughout most of the discussion, both before the first escape clause and before the second escape clause, the one with ability is better than the one without ability. The one who can do anything willingly is better than anyone who can do anything unwillingly. The many believe that ability in itself is a good thing, which is why Hippias has always exploited that to appear good to the many. Unlike what happens after the first escape clause, we don't know whether Hippias expected to end the discussion, but of course he doesn't get his way anyway, Socrates carries on. As we saw last time, Socrates then says that he thought that they agreed that those doing bad willingly were better than those who do bad unwillingly. So Socrates doesn't see how it follows that it could be terrible that those who commit injustice willingly would also be better than those who commit injustice unwillingly. Hippias says that to him it doesn't seem to follow from the discussion. Straight denial can work in heuristics, but Socrates carries on. Ego domen o Hippia kai soi phanenai. I thought, Hippias, that they seemed also to you to be better, that is. Halindapokrinai. Again, answer. The small interchange about what Hippias thought or didn't think is to mark the transition from the discussion about the use of objects and tools and humans to something slightly different. Hei dikaiosune uchi e dynamistis estin e episteme e amphotera e kan anche hengeti tuton enaiten dikaiosynen? Nai. Justice, isn't it some sort of power or field of knowledge or both? Isn't it necessary that it is one of those, justice? Yes, it actually isn't necessary for justice to be a power or an ability or a field of understanding or knowledge. This is actually a good example of an apparently philosophical claim which philosophers would pick up on if they were to read this at all, and they would argue whether Plato meant that justice was dynamis, power, ability, or episteme, knowledge, and whether he was right or wrong. What is important to us, however, is to understand why Socrates says it, why Hippias agrees, and the fact that the context is heuristic. It sounds right to the many, therefore Hippias as well cannot deny it. As for Socrates, he's raised the concept of justice because Hippias has claimed something about people who commit injustice. We've known for a long time that the conversation is really about ability, and now Socrates is making it explicit. Ukun emen dynamis estites psyches he dikaiosyne, he dynatotera psyche dikaiotera esti. Peltion gar pu he mine phane o ariste he toiaute, ephane gar. So if justice is an ability of the soul, the more able soul is more just, for such a soul appeared to us, O best of men, better. Yes, for it did appear. Tide episteme, uch he sophotera psyche dikaiotera, he de amathestera adicotera? Nay. What then? If it is knowledge, isn't the more expert soul more just, and the more ignorant more unjust? Yes. Tid eam fotera, uch eam foteras echuse, epistemen kai dunamin, dikaiotera, he damethestera adicotera, uchutos ananke echen, finetai. What then? If it's both, isn't the soul having both knowledge and ability more just, while the more ignorant is more unjust? Isn't that necessary? So it appears. From the first discussion about Achilles and Odysseus, we already know that episteme is a type of ability. So when Socrates now talks about either ability or knowledge, he's not really giving two alternatives. Knowledge in this conversation, in this dialogue, is a type of ability. Hippias has ability because he has knowledge. Knowledge is a part of techne. Techne is knowledge and the application of that knowledge. The point is that Socrates has made Hippias agree at all that justice is ability, or a type of ability. This is new, this sort of ability is new because justice includes within itself a good end. You cannot use justice for a bad end. Justice is not just the means, it is the end as well, if indeed we should treat justice as an ability. It's interesting when Socrates considers justice as both knowledge and ability, that he describes the more just soul as having both knowledge and ability, but when he describes the more unjust soul, he only describes it as more uneducated without mentioning ability at all. He doesn't say that it's the soul lacking ability or the soul with less ability. He just doesn't mention it. Throughout the dialogue, the conversation has concentrated on having ability rather than not having ability. It's the people with ability who can choose to do wrong or right. Eristically, this means that people without ability can't do anything. They can't do wrong or right. They don't have the ability. And Socrates doesn't want to bring up that problem now, apparently, so he doesn't even mention the lack of ability. Ukun he dunatotera kai sophotera haute amenon usa ephane kai amphotera malon dunamene poien kai tapkala kai ta ischra peripasan ergasian. Nay. So this more able and more expert appeared to be better and more able to do both, that is, both the fine things and base things, with regard to every activity. Yes, Hippias is so fixated on ability that the moment justice is treated as an ability, he completely forgets that justice is for a good end. If there is no good end, there is no justice. But because we are now treating it as an ability, Hippias agrees that justice is for good and for bad. It's for fine things and base things. This was effectively Socrates' last attempt to get Hippias to realize his mistake about means, about ability. Socrates gave Hippias a means which has a good end. By definition, justice is a good thing. And the moment Socrates says, but this is an ability for good and bad, Hippias agrees. That's really the end of any attempt to make Hippias think dialectically, and it's the end of this episode.